We've had a lot of astrology to discuss since 2025 began. And in March, we saw the eclipses, the retrograde energies of Mercury and Venus, plus Neptune entering Aries. But as April gets underway, there's another big aspect happening in the background that's important to take note of and be aware of in your chart. This is Saturn in Pisces, sextiling Uranus in Taurus at 24, nearly 25 degrees. And this sextile continues throughout April, where they are within 1 degree from each other later on in the month. Then they're going to meet up and have a second exact sextile in January 2026. And that second sextile will happen at 27 degrees of each sign. Saturn will be in Pisces at 27 degrees, Uranus back in Taurus at 27 degrees. So the sextile happens twice. And throughout April, there are energies here coming up for you to make note of what you are finalizing, ending, clearing out, and allowing to dissolve, while also feeling some creative reinventions opening up with the Uranus in Taurus. Now I'm going to break this down even more for you because I think there's a few other things going on here that are very important. And I'm going to start with Saturn. Saturn is actually in a phase through 2025 of appearing ringless from our vantage point here on Earth. That means that instead of Saturn being tilted where we see the rings, we're seeing Saturn's rings edge on. And when we see them edge on, they appear to disappear. So Saturn appears ringless. The energy is going to be evident with the naked eye. And appearing ringless is a phenomenon that happens about every 14 years or so, 14 to 15 years. It last occurred in 2009, and before that in 1994 and 1995. So Saturn has a cycle of appearing ringless to us, which certainly changes the archetypal expressions and understandings of Saturn, because we associate Saturn with boundaries, limitations, what you need to focus on and be responsible for. And so how does that change when those boundaries disappear, when those rings are no longer visible? And it's fascinating that this is occurring in Pisces, which is about dissolving, transcending, allowing the energy to flow and move freely. And so the Saturn in Pisces appearing ringless is moving this energy fully out. The energy is meant to be fully released and completed. So wherever this Saturn in Pisces is moving through your chart, this could feel like the karmic release is real, the energy shift and the transitions have a sense of being more obvious to you. Now, I did a podcast for you on this topic back in July of 2024. And it's about the astronomy and astrology of Saturn appearing ringless. So I talk about it in more detail if you want to dive into that more. But I feel this is an important part of the aspect that Saturn in Pisces is making to Uranus in Taurus. Now, the other thing that's going on with Saturn that is also important is Saturn is making a conjunction to the North Node in Pisces. And that will be exact in the middle of April at 26 degrees of Pisces. And I'm referencing the true north node for this conjunction. Saturn is coming to this conjunction to the north node. And it's also making it more obvious to us what endings are needed. And that's because it's in Pisces. And the Pisces energies of completion, so that we can move into the new phase, are very strong throughout 2025. When Saturn makes a conjunction to the north node, we're being called upon to evaluate and understand what we are achieving, what we are creating, and how we are committing to areas of our lives that matter for the long term. What is paying off for you? What is working? What is in alignment for you? And what is not? Saturn conjunct the north node of fate, destiny, growth, stepping outside a comfort zone to learn more, is showing you what you can take on or commit to next, as well as helping you perhaps see what you no longer want in your life, what is no longer a commitment or responsibility that you want to take forward. So I feel that this Saturn conjunct the north node is bringing up some big choice points for us about long-term endeavors and what you want to choose and what you want to step away from. So if you have planets or points, especially near 26 degrees of Pisces and or 26 degrees of Virgo and or 26 degrees of the other two mutable signs, Gemini and Sagittarius, this energy is going to be more important for you in terms of how you're living your life, what is paying off, what is rewarding, but what you need to phase out and move away from as well. It's an interesting energy because typically Saturn wants us to make commitments and understand where we're going, what the future holds. The Saturn energy is where we show up to make progress, get things done. But in Pisces, especially at 26 degrees of Pisces, near the very end of a cycle, there's a sense of, I've done my best here, or this is what I've achieved, this is what I've accomplished. And now I'm going to take that understanding of myself and my energy and move on to the next set of goals, the next area of my growth that I want to develop and invest in. So the Saturn energy is important throughout April in the Pisces areas of your chart. Because not only is the Saturn appearing ringless, removing limitations and boundaries, also when Saturn has that appearance of being ringless, there's less support or less of what we've relied upon to count on. So just think about that too for yourselves. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments. You know, what it feels like for you when you think of the Saturn appearing ringless in Pisces and what we are dissolving and clearing out in the physical world, since that's what Saturn rules. Saturn is the taskmaster, the gatekeeper, the timekeeper of the physical realms. And so as that energy is being dispersed, it's flowing out, it's emptying a vessel. Saturn is that container. The container is pouring out and being emptied so that the next energy, the new, comes in to fill up that container. And with the conjunction to the North Node, where do you want to go next that matters to you, that means something to you? So a lot happening with just the Saturn in general, the Saturn in Pisces in terms of appearing ringless and conjunct the North Node. Now, as I started saying too in the video, this energy is receiving support from Uranus and Taurus through a sextile. The sextile energy is a good, healthy friendship. It's support. You're not in it alone. You've got resources coming through. There's things showing up to help with what Saturn is winding down and clearing out. And Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018, shaking up the Taurus areas of your chart, where you've had the biggest roller coaster rides, fast-moving changes, things you've had to hustle for, or perhaps just be aware of the next step, the new choice. What do I need to do here to take care of this? There's a move fast energy with Uranus. Uranus and Taurus. Taurus is typically stable, comfort zone. This is what I do. This is what I rely on. This is what I like. Don't mess it up. Don't change it up on me. And here comes Uranus, like the Tasmanian devil, spinning up what you previously thought would remain the same. And so with this Taurus now in the late degrees, with Uranus now in the late degrees of Taurus, look at how you've been adaptable and able to work with the speediness and uncertainty of Uranus. Uranus has perhaps challenged or brought up new ways of looking at your resources and what you need in life, what you want in life. Perhaps there's been a lot of instability with income, paycheck, salary at times. Maybe there have been some things changing in your immediate environment around what you own, what you accumulate, what you gain. Taurus is the energy of what we gain and possess. It's what you value and you take in. And so not just physically or in the material world, although because Taurus is an earth sign, that's what we associate with it first, but it's what you call into your earthly experiences because it matters to you. So these energies have been quite unstable. And the Uranus in Taurus is asking you to look at your own ingenuity. How maybe you've been pushed to certain limits and you've had to figure it out. You've been pushed into new territory that has been wildly uncomfortable and thrown you off. And yet somehow you did what was necessary to take care of things, to be aware of what is essential and what is not. And that is one of the bigger overarching gifts of Uranus and Taurus, is that it shows us, well, what really matters to me and what doesn't? You know, what do I really need in my world and what not? What is not important? On a personal note, I actually had this experience in late 2024 when there was a hurricane coming, and where I live in Florida, and it was a matter of just doing the things I've normally done, but this was a more intense storm. And typically I have time to prepare and we know what to do. I mean, there's things you do to prepare your house and do what you got to do. But this particular storm, because it was going to supposedly be a category 5, I stood in my house and I'm like, what do I take? I have pictures on my phone. I have my insurance documents printed out. I have my computer, my electronics, but like, what do I take with me that really has meaning? And I didn't take much, which is a very weird thing to experience when all of a sudden you're like, what do I pack? What matters? What's going to matter? What's replaceable and what's not replaceable? This is Uranus and Taurus energy. Because I looked at all my stuff and I'm like, well, none of this matters in the way that I have to pack it all up. Most of everything is replaceable except a few key things that aren't replaceable, and that's what I take with me. It's a very weird thing to be, a very weird experience to have, where you're like, I'm realizing I'm surrounded by stuff that I like and I enjoy, but what has long-term meaning? And so this Uranus and Taurus is asking you to look with new eyes at what you value in your life and why. And you might be surprised at those answers. You might be surprised at what you do pack or what you do want for the long term. And then there's this reassessment of what has a lower priority. So with Uranus in Taurus, sextiling Saturn in Pisces, and sextiling the North Node in Pisces, these two areas of your chart, where you have between 24 to 27 degrees of Pisces and 24 to 27 degrees of Taurus, are two areas of your chart that are in a supportive dynamic throughout April 2025, and then again in January 2026, allowing you to reassess what matters to you at this time on your journey. And you might be liberated in some way. You might feel like, this isn't what I thought it was, or I don't need to have all this stuff, or I was keeping things around that weren't truly adding to my life. And I don't just mean physically. I mean, what is your energy invested in, and what meaning does it really have for you now? There can be support here for streamlining, minimizing, downsizing, simplifying, and it feeling very liberating, very free. Like, oh, I just don't have to be bogged down by all that or be worried about all that. Maybe these are, plans on your calendar. Maybe these are obligations you have, commitments you have. Those are all the Saturn areas. Or other people are relying on you, or there's things you're responsible for. Expectations that people have on you. What needs to be reconfigured here? That will be a process, especially because this energy happens twice. And so if you're feeling it strongly in April 2025, give yourself until early 2026. Maybe that's the roadmap for what you want to simplify and pare down, so that by the time that second sextile occurs in January 2026, you have a sense of, okay, this is where I'd rather be. This is how I would prefer to be living my life. These are both outer planets that affect us in terms of the structures of our lives and what we are building our lives around. And you could realize what's winding down for you, what you want to step away from, what you are solid with, and now you're ready for the next thing or the next version that's more in alignment with your values and what matters now. There's also the potential here for great creativity with the influence of Pisces and Taurus through the sextile. It's a receptive, quiet creativity, and you feel it. There's a sense of, this feels great. I really want to make this happen. I want this to be a part of my energy and what I'm flowing with and what I'm feeling. It's a humble energy, receptive, feminine, internal. So you could have some internal insights here into changes you're ready to make in your life that feel good now, and maybe they didn't line up previously. That's also important with these sextiles between two outer planets. Something clicks now that didn't seem to line up before. And so you might feel that shift as well. This energy is really supportive for any water signs and earth sign placements in the last, or in the, let's call it towards the end of the water signs and the earth signs. So all 3 water signs and all 3 earth signs are going to be feeling this energy at some level if you have placements around 24 to 27 degrees of earth and water signs. So again, this could be happening in the background. This could be something that you've been feeling and working with, but with all the big energies and the hype of 2025 so far, it might not be what you've called forward, but there's an energy here that's coming forward. And I feel it too as something we have to drop into. So it's like you drop into that. It's a peacefulness. It's sort of like taking a really big exhale and then being calmer, grounded, centered. I mean, we can use a big exhale after eclipse season anyways. But I hope this helps you see perhaps what might be taking shape and form for you in maybe the backdrop or background, and to certainly trust it, because this is a positive energy. This is a great energy of seeing how pieces align and come together, and seeing how you can restructure your life in a new way. That again, it clicks now in 2005 into 2026, but it didn't line up or click before. So I hope this gives you some good things to think about here in April 2025. Oh, getting back to my hurricane story, on a practical level, let me just be practical with you. One thing you want to do is you want to make sure that wherever you live, and if you have insurance, right? Homeowners insurance, renters insurance, any insurance, you go through and you video record every room in your house to document all your stuff. This is the things I do for hurricane season. You videotape everything you own for insurance purposes, and that's how you document your stuff. Okay, just got to say that Uranus is still in Taurus. Make sure that you have some things that are concrete and well documented, just in case, right? Okay, thank you for joining me. I'll be back here soon with another video, and wishing you a beautiful April.